Welcome to this online presentation. My name is Dr. Andrew Timms and I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives to learn more about how to improve your health and your life. Because the time we spend on ourselves is the greatest investment you can ever make. So well done. In this online presentation, I'm going to go through the amazing body and nervous system, how chiropractic can help your health, and why upper cervical, which is the technique we use here at Purity Chiropractic, is so powerful. Please watch right through to the end because I want to reward the investment of time that you've made today with a special offer for you. So please enjoy this online presentation and I hope to see you soon. Hi and welcome to this online presentation of Better Health. My name is Dr. Andrew Timms. I'm the owner of Purity Chiropractic. And we have two locations in Queensland. We have one in Twin Waters and one in Fernvale. I'm not sure how you came to this online presentation today, if it was from a friend referring the link or you just found it online. But if you find this information valuable and you believe that it can help change your health and your life, please help us get this to as many people as possible and pass on this link so we can help get our community healthier. We have a purpose here at Purity Chiropractic, and our purpose is that we see that there is a downward trend of unnecessary sickness and suffering in the world, and our purpose is to be a part of turning that around. Now, when we look at health, are our governments around the world every year spending more or less money on healthcare? 100%. More money. Every single year we're spending more and more money. But as a society, each year, are we getting healthier or are we getting sicker? We're getting sicker. So do we see that there's a little bit of a problem going on there? But every year we're spending more and more money, but every year we continue to get sicker and sicker. So do you see the definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over and over again, expecting a different result, is kind of playing out here? You know, we have to start thinking differently and we have to start acting differently to be able to change our health. Because if what we thought about health was true, what should we all be? Healthy, 100%. So a lot of it is starting to change our mindset and starting to think about things in a different way. And that's why through this presentation, you'll notice I'll tend to ask a lot of questions. And I know you're not sitting here in front of me, but it's really important, and the reason I ask those questions is to just get you to start thinking about things that you may not have ever thought about, or a way you may not have thought about, and it can just switch on those light bulbs to get the brain going in the right direction. Because when we think about it, what is our greatest asset? And I hope everyone was thinking straight off the bat health, obviously because we're talking about health talk, but I hope that was your instinctive reaction, is to do health. And absolutely, because if we think about it, is there anything more important to you than your health and the health of those that you love? Absolutely not. But then again, if we think about it, if health was the most important thing in our life, what would you tend to do with the most important thing in your life? Do you think you would allow and put a fair bit of time and effort in to something that is the most important thing in your life? 100%. You think out of anything in that you do in your life, that is what you're going to spend the most time doing. But do we really put health and spend more time on our health than just about anything? You know, and the answer for most people is absolutely not, right? Because we have all intention and great intentions for health being our greatest asset, but it's the actions behind it that are so critical to make that a reality or not. And we need to start putting the time and effort that it deserves, because, you know, the amount of people I hear that say, oh, look, I just don't have time to put into the, you know, I'm looking after this, I'm looking after the kids, whatever it may be, you know. But if we don't have our health, how good are we to any of our family or any of the people we care about, right? Our health has to be a top priority, because if we don't have our health, we can't be any good to anyone else. Now, one of the main things that initially brings people to a chiropractor, or what a lot of people associate chiropractic with, is pain and symptoms. You know, a lot of people think they need back pain or headaches to come to a chiropractor. And as you learn throughout this presentation, there is so much more to chiropractic than just pain and symptoms. And as a society, we tend to think about pain and symptoms incorrectly. Because one thing is, are symptoms a good thing or a bad thing? Right? And a lot of people instinctively think they're bad because they think they shouldn't have any pain and symptoms. Well, pain and symptoms really are a good thing because they're giving you warning bells in your body that something is actually wrong. And we tend to think about pain and symptoms kind of like fire alarms and check engine lights. So if a fire alarm, for example, was going off in your house, is it a rational or an irrational solution to that problem to get out of bed, grab the broom, smack the fire alarm off the ceiling, it goes off, and then you go back to bed? Would that be a rational or an irrational solution to that problem? Completely irrational, right? Same thing, if you were driving down the freeway and you had your check engine light come on in your car, would it be a rational solution to pull over on the edge of the freeway, open the bonnet, find the wire to the check engine light, cut it so the light goes off, and keep driving? Is that a rational or an irrational solution to that problem? Right? That's completely irrational, okay? But that's how we tend to think about pain and symptoms as a society. You know, we have these check engine lights and these warning lights and these alarms, which are our pain and symptoms, but yet we mask them with drugs and painkillers, right? We need to start thinking of our body because only 10% of our entire nervous system can even perceive pain, right? So 90% of all of the issues that are going on and negative reactions that are happening in your body, you do not even feel, you know? So we want to be having an impact not only on helping the pain and symptoms, which is a very small percentage of what's actually going on, but we want the whole body to be functioning at a better level. So can you see how you could very easily be driving 100 kilometers an hour down the completely wrong road? Another way to think about health is thinking about darkness and relating it to darkness. And that may sound unusual, but here's the question: does darkness exist? Does darkness exist? Well, no. Darkness does not exist because darkness is purely just an absence of light, right? And the same thing goes with our health, right? Disease does not necessarily really actually exist. We only have disease because we have an absence of health. So we need to focus on our health and we need to maintain our health so diseases don't have their prevalence within our body. With all that being said then, well, let's have a look at what actually health is. And if we take the definition from the World Health Organization, health is a state of optimal physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. So the second part of that question, that statement, is so critical to understand, where it says not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. So health is just not the fact that you don't have diseases and you don't have pain and symptoms. That is not related to health, where most people think if they feel good and they don't have any pain and symptoms, they think they're healthy. Right? That could not be further from the truth, and it clearly states it in the definition of health. Health is a state of optimal physical, mental, and social well-being. We need to have all aspects functioning properly. You know, we can't be the fittest person in the world and still eat like crap, right? You're not going to express health. Or you cannot eat really well, do a lot of exercise, but have terrible mental state and high stress and poor emotions, right? You are not going to be expressing health. We need to have all three components functioning, and we need to work on all three components to make sure we can truly be healthy. So health is really 100% function of the body. So a really important question that we need to ask ourselves now is, how do you know that you're healthy? Right? How do you know you're healthy? Where most people rely on pain and symptoms and how they feel to determine whether they're healthy. But can you feel your arteries clogging? Right? If you're potentially going to be having a heart attack, or can you feel cancer growing inside you? Right? No. Right? No one's ever felt their arteries clogging up, right? And 80% of the time, the first symptom of a heart attack is death. And I don't know about you, but that's not what I want as my first symptom. And also the fact that we don't feel cancer, right? Cancer can be growing inside us. It is a 1, 5, 10, sometimes 20 or 30 year disease process before we even ever get a symptom from it. And all that time that is growing inside us, could we possibly be healthy? Regardless, you could be fit as a fiddle and you could feel fantastic, but if you have cancer growing inside you, there is no way you can be considering yourself healthy, right? The only reason we have the diseases is because we have a lack of health. So what actually determines our health is the function of our nervous system. So our nervous system literally controls and coordinates every single function of your body. Now, I heard that statement thousands, if not thousands of times before I actually really grasped the enormity of that statement. And it is just about incomprehensible to grasp what the nervous system does every single second in our body. And with our nervous system, obviously our nervous system runs from our brain through our spinal cord, through our peripheral nerves to every cell, organ and tissue of the body and back again. Okay? And if we have that flow at 100% to and from the brain and the body, there is no way you could possibly be unhealthy. Right? And so that's why as chiropractors, we're looking for areas of your spine. And the reason your spine is because that's where your nervous system goes. If your nervous system didn't go through your spine, we wouldn't be looking at your spine, right? That's the reason we touch your spine. Because if you have some lack of function of your spine that is affecting how a nerve is exiting to and from the body, then that is going to affect how your entire body and your system is going to be working. So that is what we're looking for in chiropractic. Those subluxations are the areas that are stopping the body from working properly. Because just to give you an idea of the enormity of the nervous system, how many impulses do you reckon come from your brain or it's stimulating your nervous system every single second? How many? 3 trillion. I wonder how close you were. 3 trillion nerve impulses every single second. Now, even more than that, how many of those 3 trillion do you believe are conscious, that you have conscious control over? How many do you think it is? 50. That's right. We only have conscious awareness of 50 bits of information out of 3 trillion every single second. And then to think that pain is actually a conscious emotion. You actually have to have the stimuli of pain get to your conscious brain before you actually even feel it. So pain is actually a conscious emotion. So if we are only consciously aware of 50 bits out of 3 trillion, can you start to get an idea of how actually insignificant pain and symptoms are in the relation to the actual functioning of your entire body? So one of the best ways to really understand the amazing power of the nervous system is having a look at the development of a baby, right? Where life starts. It is one of the most miraculous processes you could possibly think of, because we go from 1 cell to 70 trillion cell perfect human being in 9 months, and it's done perfectly just about every single time. You know, because could that process possibly be random chance? Absolutely not, right? And what is the first thing that develops in a fetus? Do you know what the first thing is? It's called your neural cord, like a little stripe. That's all that happens. It's a neural cord. What do you think the neural cord is? Absolutely, it's your spinal cord, right? Why do you think your spinal cord is the first thing that starts to develop in a baby? Right? Because that's where all your life gets fed from, right? It is the governing factor of everything. But now, this one's going to really trip you out, because if we started from 1 cell, we ended in 70 trillion cells. So that 1 cell divided, became 70 trillion cells, okay? So if we only started from 1 cell, all those 70 trillion cells have to be genetically what? They have to be genetically identical, right? Because we only started from 1 cell. They are all genetically identical. So if everything is genetically identical, why then does a heart cell look different to a kidney cell, look different to a spleen cell, look different to a hair cell, look different to a nail cell? Why do all of those cells look and function completely differently if they are all genetically identical? That's got you thinking, doesn't it? It's because it's not your genes that determine what happens with your cells, it is your environment, right? It is the environment that those cells get put into which will determine how they are to be expressed. So your nervous system creates the environment of a heart, for example, and it will start generating heart tissue, right? The same thing with everything. So is the environment that we put our body into, that our nervous system responds to, that determines how our cells and our body are going to be expressed. So what is it then that affects our flow of our life energy or our nervous system to and from the brain and the body? And I mentioned it earlier, and it's what we call a subluxation. And so a subluxation is when you have a lack of function of the spine or a joint. And that lack of function is going to then affect how that nervous system is responding and stimulating to and from that area. And because of that, then there's some type of dis-ease or dysfunction happening to the cells that those nerves supply. And there are 3 causes to not only subluxations, to literally every issue on the face of the planet that could happen with our body, only ever comes a result of one or the accumulation of all of these stresses. And there's emotional stress, there's chemical stress, and there's physical stress. And when we talk about stress, a lot of times people's default reaction to stress is to only think about physically feeling stressed. Like when you're really busy or you've got so much to do, you know, that's when we feel stressed. That is a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of what stressors are. We have millions of them in our life. You know, some chemical stresses are not only our food and medications and the environment, but, you know, EMFs, like, because we have so much Wi-Fi and stuff happening at the moment, you know, those, and that's why there was such a big issue around the 5G network, is because of the potential issues that it could have with our health, right? Those EMFs have a big impact on a lot of our health, and we don't even see them, we don't even think about them, you know. And I can guarantee you the mental, emotional side of our stressors are far, far more powerful than the physical. You know, and the physical doesn't have to be things like slips and falls and accidents, right? The fact that we sit down so much as a society at our jobs, right? Sitting down is the worst thing we could ever do from ourselves. And with research, every hour we sit, we essentially lose 22 minutes of life. That's a pretty scary stat, right? We are designed to be physically active and we are designed to be mobile. So we have all of these stressors in our life that are constantly accumulating. and they will continue to accumulate, and you eventually will hit a straw that breaks the camel's back, which is when we get pain and symptoms, right? Most of the times we think the problems that we have only start when the straw broke the camel's back or the pain and symptoms started. But the problem started, unless it was an acute accident like a trauma, the problem started days, weeks, months, most likely years beforehand, before you've ever got those pain and symptoms from. And so here at Purity Chiropractic, we actually specialize in a technique called upper cervical. And why is the upper cervical so important, and why would we choose to specialize in that area? And it's because we've just done a lot of explanation about the nervous system and how it's the controlling factor of your entire body. But it is actually our brain stem that controls our whole nervous system. And so when we were looking at that picture before of the whole brain, spinal cord, nerves going out to all the cell, organs and tissue of our body, we have our brain. At the bottom of our brain, we have our brain stem. And our brain stem actually descends out of our skull, out the bottom of our skull, and it comes down to roughly the second segment of our spine, so C2, or the second bone in your neck. Then it turns into your spinal cord. So with those top two bones of our spine, we are actually affecting the brain stem, not the spinal cord. And so because of that, we are literally affecting the entire nervous system, and we are having an impact on your whole body. So just with the fact of being able to adjust your upper neck, we can literally affect everything. And the other reason they're so important is because the first two bones of your neck are actually completely different to the rest of your entire spine. Your atlas, which is the very top bone that we primarily adjust, it is literally just a tiny little ring of bone. It looks completely different to the rest of your spine. And so with what we're looking for, we look at some x-rays, and we're looking at how the structure of your spine sits, because it is critical to have an optimal functioning spine to enable the nervous system to function properly. And researchers actually call the curve in our neck the arc of life, right? And they call it that because they realized that if we do not have a curve in our neck, we could not possibly be functioning properly, right? And they've even done some research on children where if you don't have a neck curve by the age of 9, you will never reach the potential that you could have reached in life. Now that's some pretty scary research. And how many parents are actually taking their children under the age of 9 to go get checked by a chiropractor? Few, right? And the main reason for that is because the perception out there is that you need pain and symptoms, or you need neck pain or back pain to actually go see a chiropractor. And this is one of the main importance of the presentation, is that we want to break that awareness. We want to break that wide open, because now you're understanding that we need to be getting checked and adjusted to continue the nervous system to function and develop properly. It's not about keeping you pain-free. We want to make sure all the energy pours from your brain to the rest of your body and back again, and that life energy continues to flow properly. And an amazing medical doctor by the name of Alf Breed did some phenomenal research. And this is just a statement from one of his research papers where he says a loss of the cervical curve stretches the spinal cord 5 to 7 centimeters and produces a pathological tension, putting the body in a state of disease. So what he's saying by that is, by losing the curve of our neck, we literally stretch our spinal cord and put ourselves in a state of disease. That is how critically important the function of our spine is. And Alf Breed actually did some phenomenal other researches into multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's, where he knows, if you notice most people with MS and Parkinson's, they are very flexed forward and they stooped and they're bending forward. And so what he did, he actually got a cord, he did surgery, and he got a cord in their spinal column, and he attached it to the mid-back, and he put the cord up through the spine and attached it to the skull. So basically they were then forced to be in an upright position where they could really hardly move. But in doing that, by creating them to be upright and getting the curves back into their spine, all of their symptoms disappeared. That's how phenomenal taking stress off the nervous system can be. So here's some more quite phenomenal research regarding the upper cervical spine and why it is so critically important. And the research was titled "The Role of the Craniocervical Junction and Craniospinal Hydrodynamics in Neurodegenerative Conditions." So this was in the Neurology Research International, which is a major neurological research journal. And part of the conclusion was that the craniocervical junction, which is the very upper neck between your spine and your skull, is a potential choke point for craniospinal hydrodynamics, which is basically your cerebral spinal fluid, and may play a causative or contributory role in the pathogenesis and progression of neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, ALS, as well as many other neurological conditions, including hydrocephalus, idiopathic intracranial hypertension, migraines, seizures, silent strokes, affective disorders, schizophrenia, and psychosis. A huge amount of stuff. So they're basically saying the upper cervical spine is a choke point for that dynamics of your cerebral spinal fluid, and if you start to affect the dynamics of your cerebral spinal fluid, that can be the result of all these neurodegenerative diseases. So what does it look like when you come into our practice? Because now you know that what we do in upper cervical is quite a different and unique part of chiropractic, because there's very few upper cervical chiropractors in Australia. But also the way we adjust is also very different. A lot of people have that perception that chiropractic is about cracking necks and cracking backs, right? Far, far from the truth. With the way we actually adjust, there is no cracking of the neck or rotation of the neck whatsoever. So it is extremely, extremely safe. And the way we adjust is we use the drop table as well. So typically you'd be actually lying on your side, just like you're lying in your bed on a pillow. We've got a table where a little part of the mechanism of the table can raise, and when we do like a quick gentle thrust, the table just drops down. It can make a bit of a banging noise, but you feel very little. And so it is a very gentle and is very safe, and now you know it's very, very powerful technique. And we also use our nerve scanner on every visit. So what our nerve scanner is, it's a Titron nerve scanner that allows us to assess what is happening with the nervous system. And it shows us where there's nerve interference and how severe that nerve interference is. But the reason it's so powerful is because each time you come in and we scan what's going on, we actually relate you to what's called your pattern. So the first time you come in, we actually get a pattern of the restriction or what's going on with your nervous system. And from that pattern, each time you come in, we can see what's happening with your pattern and with your scan, and that actually allows us to see when we do and don't need to be adjusting. And it may sound funny, but it's actually more important for us to know when we do not want to be adjusting your upper cervical spine than when we do want to be adjusting, because it's got very little relations to do with symptoms for whether or not we do or don't want to be adjusting. So that's why it's critical to have this technology that allows us to see how your nervous system is going and when we do and don't need to be adjusting your spine. Okay, well now you know a lot more information about your nervous system chiropractic than what you did before, and you also understand what we do here at Chiropractic, at Purity Chiropractic, and why upper cervical is so powerful. So just to start to conclude what's going on, we just want to recap a little bit of the information and see if you can remember what we were talking about. So just have a think about this. How long should you take care of your spinal nervous system? Yeah, hopefully you now answer forever. right? Because we only get one, and we've got to look after it, and it doesn't regenerate like other tissue. Who should be checked for subluxations? I hope the answer was everybody. Absolutely. From birth to death. Like, I was adjusted when I was 3 hours old. I'm lucky enough to have a father who's a chiropractor. I've got 5 kids. I birthed most of my children, and I also checked and adjusted them within the first hour of birth. Right? The birth process is probably the most traumatic thing we ever go through. And so it is critical to make sure the spine and nervous system is checked after such a traumatic event. But then making sure we're checked and developed through our entire life. When should they be checked? Well, we just kind of answered that in the last one. Literally as early as possible, regardless of if we have symptoms or not. Because 80% of our entire nervous system is hardwired by the time we're 8 years old. So if there's any time that is critical to be getting adjusted to make sure we're developing properly and our nervous system is working, is between the ages of 0 and 8. Do you think it is a good idea to get your family checked? I hope by now you definitely think it's a great idea, because there's nothing more important than looking after our spine and nervous system. So, what is our greatest asset? Health. I hope everyone got that one. Okay. What is health? Can you remember when we went through the definition of health from the World Health Organization? Right? It is 100% function of our body. So it's not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. It's not merely the absence of pain and symptoms. It's optimal physical, chemical, mental, emotional stress, or optimal function of our body. What controls all of our function? This is the one we went through the most in this whole presentation. Absolutely. It is your nervous system. It is your life energy flowing from your brain into every cell, organ, and tissue and back again. When would you want to know if you have subluxations? Now, absolutely. Why would you not want to know if you have subluxations or not? So, thank you so much for staying with me and watching this presentation. I truly appreciate it. And I hope now you can help share the word and share this with as many people as possible, because you understand how critically important it is to have our body working properly. And I really want to thank you for taking the time to watch this. I know everyone is busy, but it's action that I want to be rewarding. So action is everything. And I want for you to take action for watching this video. I want to offer you a $50 voucher that you can use towards your initial visit. And you can get these for your entire family. And so I want to give you that gift, so you now are more armed with the information you need to help remain healthy. And I hope you really enjoy this gift, and I hope I see you soon in the office. And thank you very much again.